Let's bring in political analyst Prince Mashele now. Prince, thank you so much for joining us. You might have heard Jordan Hill-Lewis saying that it's just time to bring in the private sector, cut the red tape. He's not alone in that view. We know the National Planning Commission is suggesting an energy emergency, circumnavigating a lot of the bureaucracy that stood in the way of solving this problem. Where do you think the president should be looking first to fix this problem?
Thanks, Sally, for inviting me. Look, the solutions to our energy crisis as a country are well known and they have been well known for some time. The problem is that there has not been political will on the part of our leadership to do what is right. There are, in the main, two things that need to be done. One is to widen the space for private players in the renewable energy space, for them to generate electricity and get it to be part of the national grid with ease. So I agree with the mayor of Cape Town on that one. Secondly, is to build generation capacity in the form of replacing Eskom's aging coal-fired power stations because coal-fired power stations constitute the bulk of our base load. And government has not been doing these two things. And the president needs to make a practical commitment, and that must be followed by action quickly to start doing these two things. Unfortunately, I have no confidence that these things will happen because we are where we are because of the president's ANC-led government. Remember, we have been having load shedding for 14 years now, almost 15 years. And who brought load shedding to South Africa? Is the ANC. We must not make the mistake of separating and isolating President Ramaphosa as if he is not a leader of the same party that has created the energy crisis in South Africa.
Is there a power struggle, pardon the pun, within the cabinet around how to solve this problem? We know that the president said within days there's going to be an action plan. Gwede Mantashe, the energy minister, has been criticised for dragging his feet on bringing in the IPP contracts, those independent contracts. Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi telling Bloomberg yesterday he doesn't favour privatisation of electricity in South Africa. Do you think that that's getting in the way of any clear action plan?
There's no question about it. The ANC, in terms of its ideological character, has described itself as a broad church. What that means is that you have people who don't believe that the private sector should play a role in the economy and in the provision of energy. You also have, on the other hand, those like the president who believe that the private sector should play an important role. So there is a clash of beliefs and ideologies in the same governing party. The governing party does not cohere. So when you get to the level of cabinet, where there has to be coherence in terms of policy and clarity of action, you still find the same people who are differing in the party, differing in cabinet. So in other words, our cabinet is a confederation of individuals holding different ideological views, which is why there is no movement. And our president is a very weak president. He has no history of decisive action. He can't provide leadership. He wants consensus, but where people don't agree, somebody must lead, and President Ramaphosa has not been leading when it comes to the energy question.
Prince, what do you think the reality is going to be? I mean, we're getting our hopes up that we are going to see some big, bold moves because, frankly, we are in an energy emergency. We do need action. I spoke to Chris Yelland last night. He agrees with the NPC. We need to declare an energy emergency to fast-track that alternative power. But he also said that on an individual level, whether we are speaking our own households, where we have capacity, we need to get used to the idea that we can't rely on government provided services, that we need to go it alone more and more. And we're seeing this borehole water, private fire services, a lot of people buying generators, solar panels. Is that our reality in this country? Is that what we need to start digesting?
Look, Sally, I'll be blunt with you and tell you what South Africans can already see. South Africa, without the private sector, by now would be a failed state. If you look at all the critical services that are supposed to be provided by government in South Africa, there is no one with a bit of money in their pocket who wants to use government services. You know why? Because we have an incompetent government that, by all indications, has collapsed. A government that cannot provide water, a government that cannot provide electricity. So if you have a bit of money, I saw Chris Allen last night, try and power up your house because you can't rely on this government. The problem is this: the economy cannot run on the basis of individuals who are trying to do something in their own homes. So we are going to have a massive economic crisis. So forget about creating jobs. There is no investor who's going to come from outside to build a factory in South Africa when we cannot provide electricity even to our own homes. So the reality is this: don't expect miracles from whatever plans that President Ramaphosa is going to announce. Remember, Sally, that when he became president of South Africa, he promised us that he was going to split Eskom into 3 units. The question is, has he done it? He has not done so. So why must we believe that whatever is going to announce now is going to happen when the plans that he announced previously have not been implemented? We cannot trust this government. If you trust this government, you trust it at your own peril.
Something that does perhaps give a glimmer of hope is the appearance in court today of 2 people who were working with contracts for Eskom. This relates to the period of around 2016. And it's an investigation the investigating directorate has been focused on. It comes out of the state capture report. These 2 people are now facing charges for allegedly inflating the contract price that they were charging to Eskom. It's a hopeful sign, perhaps, that we are starting to make some progress in clamping down on one of the big challenges that Eskom has faced and still faces, as Pravin Gordhan mentioned last week. Corruption, sabotage is still a real big problem. Do you not see any hope in some of the moves made by the NPA in bringing some of those people to court?
Sally, I'm very sorry. I missed almost the whole of your question. I mean, again, it is because of load shedding. The quality of our connection
Okay, I'm so sorry.
bad.
First of all, I will say, Prince, that I spent far too long asking that question. It was very long-winded of me. And if I was critiquing myself, I'd say be a bit quicker. Basically, we've seen an Eskom corruption case in court. 2 people who apparently inflated the costs of contracts. That's what they're standing trial for. Is that not a sign of hope that Eskom and our law enforcement authorities are making some progress in one of the problems facing the power utility?
Well, every little thing that is happening on the part of Eskom to try and punish corruption, we must welcome as the public, because for far too long we haven't seen such action. But the problems of Eskom are so massive that you need massive action. You don't need 1 or 2 court cases to fix our energy crisis. You need to do big stuff. In other words, you need to announce massive investments that will build power stations, and you must tell us when the building is going to begin. Number 2, you need to open up the space for private sector to come in, and you must tell us urgently when that is going to happen and get rid of the red tape. So the little things that are happening, yes, should be encouraging, but that is not going to that's not going to give you and I electricity tonight or tomorrow. We need action that is going to give us electricity, and of course, corruption has to be pursued.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Load shedding notwithstanding, always a great pleasure. That was political analyst Prince Mashele.